Hi, my name is Byron May. I'm an assistant principal at Pampa Junior High in beautiful Pampa, Texas, in the panhandle of Texas, and I'm here to present to you the uh, few ins and outs of running this spreadsheet. It's T-TESS Evidence Template 1.4. And basically, it was just created in order to help facilitate T-TESS evaluations and make it go a little bit smoother. I had a couple of issues in my life. One of them was I'm a faster typer than I am a writer. And the second issue I had in my life was I was not a very good T-TESS evaluator in terms of my ranking, especially when it was time for calibrating with the region people whenever I went through my training. And so this was hopefully part of the beginning of a solution to help sort some of that stuff out. But one of the things that's important in this whole document is the time stamping, and left the instructions right here on there for you, but just in case you don't get it, click up here on File, and you go down to Options, and then you find the Formulas tab, and then you find this little box that says Enable Iterative Calculations. I don't know what iterative calculations are, or if I'm even pronouncing it correctly, but Google says that if you don't click that box, then none of this works. So I already had that box clicked, but you make sure and click on yours. It has to be done on every computer. I would recommend just every time you have a new person you would like to evaluate, I would go back to this evidence template and I would file and save as, and go ahead and name it your maybe your person instead of template or something along those lines, whatever makes you happy. But I would just not mess with the current spreadsheet, and I would just keep using the original. So let's go on over to the evidence tab right here, and what you're going to see is basically just a situation where there's a place to decide what type of evidence. Your options are either student or teacher, or in some cases other, if you just have some little piece of information you'd like to record that isn't necessarily from either of them, but it's for your evidence. And then right here you can just type away your evidence, right? And you hit enter, and you'll notice a little timestamp pops up right here on the left hand side. And so as you would type like, say, the letter student, and then type away your evidence. You push enter, and then it just goes back to that next box. And so now the teacher might have said something else, and you hit enter, and there's the next timestamp. And you'll begin to see that there's, hope you don't mind some gobbledygook here, but the point is you'll be able to see that this timestamp keeps filling in as you continue down your evidence. Oops, now I put a TS right there. It's restricting the data, so I'm going to come back and just make sure that that's a T. I'll probably have my speakers muted if I were in the classroom, because every once in a while I do get a little out of hand, and there will be some noises that come out of the computer, and I don't want to be a distraction. So as you continue to type, you can see that this just kind of continues, and I can type and continue typing, and you continue typing, and you continue typing, and gradually, if you were typing just line by line by line, this little gradient you're seeing here would actually be even more gradual than what you're seeing right now. But it'll gradually turn from red into a green, and we have a reason for that, and we'll come back to it later. So before I get too far ahead of myself, up here, basically this is taken straight out of the T-TESS books. These are the dimensions for each one of the categories, so that I can just be looking at it as we go along. And then this is the infamous look fors, where maybe this descriptor is not nearly as handy. If I'm looking for these types of categories, then that will actually help me out along the way. And so what you can do is, once you've finished up with the lesson, you can go back through and categorize some of these items, these pieces of evidence that you've collected along the way, and you realize that this behavior is maybe applies to 3 or 4 of those categories. And I've actually pre-selected these. I hope that doesn't become too confusing for you. But the point is you can go back in and label all these little pieces of evidence here however you want. And so once you're finished with that lesson, one of the ways that I was really struggling with scoring my T-TESS calibration activities was that when I finished with an essay, I really wrestled with a rubric, and I talked myself either down or I talked myself up. But one of the things that I was always wrong on, whenever I was wrong, was that did I watch a mainly student-centered classroom or a mainly teacher-centered classroom? Well, this little pie chart right here, as it's continuing to develop, as you type, it continues to adjust based off of that very concept and measuring along the way. So, for instance, you can watch this little graph just continue to change. Hopefully, yep, sure did. 50-50. So, wow, that's a very well-balanced classroom. I don't know if that means proficient or not, but the point remains. So the other thing I think that might really help along the way is just how much data that I'm gathering for each of these domains once I'm all said and done. So if you'll watch Monitor and Adjust there, I'm just going to click Monitor and Adjust, and I'm going to drag it down, and sure enough, yeah, there's Monitor and Adjust. It just keeps kind of updating as we go. And so now you have a chance to have a look at student versus teacher. What kind of data am I getting for each one of those categories? So now that you've got all this information, it's going to be time to help build your case for your rating. And one of the things that I think might come in handy here is if we were to take all of these off and just look at routines and procedures. So rather than taking those and dragging them across to whatever your software or feedback form is, instead, if you'll just click this routines and procedures box from the drop-down menu and filter just by that, then what you'll get to see, this is kind of gets messed up, but what you'll get to see is all of this information is right here. For better and worse, right now what I'm doing is I'm taking all of this and I'm actually just hitting the old Control-C, and then I'm walking over into my Eduphoria document. We're proud users of Eduphoria, and slapping it right in there at the bottom of my feedback forms. And so that way, once I have put a little summary in there, then the teachers would also be able to see just kind of eyes and ears. I call it raw evidence, and that way they can kind of see what it feels like for another person to be viewing their classroom. The other way that I was really having trouble giving ratings on my evidence was the preponderance of data, as they like to say. And one of the ways that I think you can gauge whether there's a preponderance of data is if it happened at the beginning and the middle and the end of class. This would not, I don't know, be a very strong evidence for the beginning of class, but it would give you a sense by looking at these color codes whether or not you were getting a heavy dose at the beginning or a super heavy dose at the end. That's pretty intense green there, right? So the point is now I can come back here and select all and bring it back and maybe do my next one. So say achieving expectations. Just click right there, and not very much data, and that might actually say quite a bit about where there's the absence of data, right? So anyway, that's kind of the basic gist of the spreadsheet. Just kind of another way to help me stay organized and hopefully be more efficient as we manage all of the new T-TESS evaluations that need to be done this school year. I've only got 16 of them this year, and I definitely need to make sure that I'm being as efficient and taking care of the time that I have and using it appropriately. I hope you appreciate this other little document down here on the right. Just gives you some brief ideas about if you're seeing something but you don't quite know where it's categorized. It appears in one of these dimensions here, and I thought that was a pretty handy document. So having it all right there in one spot sure can't hurt. Thanks for watching. My name is Byron May, and if you have any feedback or thoughts, I'd greatly appreciate it. There's my email address and Twitter handle. Shoot me a line. I'd love to visit with you and connect, and maybe hopefully you could share some interesting things you've got. We can make our schools better and be better for our teachers. I hope you've enjoyed this spreadsheet, and have a great day.